How's it going, people? Damocles here, and today we're going to be doing my Pokemon Unite tier list for August 2021. As always, if you find something to be useful in this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and at 20k subs, we are doing a giveaway for a $20 Nintendo eShop gift card. So make sure you subscribe and comment, and we'll get to the details of that at a later time. I am a master rank Pokemon Unite player. I predominantly play carries like Cinderace, and I think I'm pretty decent at the game. So I'm going to be showing you guys my tier list for the current state of the game. I'm trying to determine whether or not I should go and do a high elo and a low elo tier list, so please let me know down below if you think I should separate them. But right now, this is going to be my general tier list, and I'll add a lower tier list if need be. So let's just hop into it. All right, so starting off, let's go with our girl Wigglytuff. Now, Wigglytuff, I'm dropping her in C tier simply because she is just, not only do I think she's bugged, but she's just not as effective as some of the other supports in the game. Her Unite move is very cool, and she does a lot of damage with Double Slap, and Sing is a real bop, but she's really, really easy to play around and bully in lane, and her Unite move doesn't seem to be generating charge when killing wild Pokemon camp, so it's not up nearly as often as it should be, and I think that there are other supports that just outclass her in general, so for that reason, she's at C tier. She's just really easy to bully. As far as Absol is concerned, let's see. Absol is my girl. Absol is my girl, but I'm gonna drop her into the A tier. Absol is a phenomenal assassin character. She's an amazing jungler, and her power points are at the beginning of the game. She can just two-shot people early in the game. The reason why she is in A tier is because after that point, when you're playing against good teams and good players, in the later game team fights, it's really hard to get a pick and actually make a team fight impact as Absol. You almost 100% need a flank, which you should be trying to do, but good teams have a lot of shielding at that point. They know how to prepare for her, and it's just really hard to make an impact because you are very squishy, and you have to get in close range to deal damage. So very much a feast or famine character. Probably one of the best in the game at the earlier levels, and especially in lower tier play, she just dumpsters people. But as you climb up, her effectiveness starts to really slow down towards the later stages of the game. So that's why I got to put her at A tier. Still love her though. Let's see. Let's do Zeraora. Zeraora, I'm going to put him at A tier as well. Very similar to Absol, except not as effective early game. Absol gets a really nice power spike with Pursuit literally as she clears the jungle, so she can immediately impact a lane. But Zeraora, his power spike really comes with Discharge. He does a lot of damage early game, don't get me wrong, like an absurd amount of damage early game, but really Discharge is the real nasty part of his kit, and at higher levels of play, people just know how to play around it, and there's just different and better picks for team compositions than Zeraora. His Unite move is very powerful. It just does an absurd amount of damage, and he hurts really bad, but he is, in my opinion, I think he's more of a noob stomper. His Discharge, if you sit in it, is gonna hurt you, but at higher levels of play, people understand where his weak points are, and they exploit them. He has to go in, he has to be in melee range, and he is a squishy character, and so if you can just play around his Discharge, he isn't as much of a threat, but he's still really strong, so for that reason, I'm going to put him in the A tier. Let's do Snorlax. Snorlax, I'm going to put him at mandatory on high ranked teams, in my opinion. I have a real hard time with the ranking system just being S, A, B, C, and D, because it doesn't really quite tell the entire story. Right now, at the higher levels of play, a lot of times there are just characters that you should have on a team. I'm not saying this is mandatory, it's a 100% rule, but in general, there are some characters like Snorlax that just have so much utility, and they're so good that it's really hard to not have them on a team and take somebody else. His CC, his sustain, everything about him. His heavy slam is a fantastic engage early game. His block is probably one of the best, if not the best abilities in the entire game from a utility point of view. You can stop people from doing Zapdos. You can stop people from getting to Zapdos. You can prevent Gengars from destroying your team. It's just amazing. He's a really just phenomenal defender and really doesn't have too many weak points. And for that reason, I put him kind of in that mandatory category because he's just so good. He's so good. You can't go wrong picking Snorlax on your team. Let's see here. Lucario, I'm going to put him in S tier. He is just so unbelievably strong at 90% of the stages of the game. From the start of the game, he is insanely powerful. There's not many people that can take him one-on-one for the entirety of the game. And he should fall off later on, but because of how much damage he does and how much... and how like pseudo tanky he is and the amount of movement that he has, he's just he's just unbelievably powerful. Sorry for the phone. He's so good. He's so good. His the optimal moves that people usually go are Power Punch and Bone Toss. Because Power Punch is just like an ungodly amount of damage and it's an execute, so you can help secure and when I say execute, I just mean its damage increases at the lower HP your target is, not that it actually like insta-kills people. It's really easy for contesting and claiming objectives like Dreadnought. So a lot of times in higher tiers of play, people will play Lucario in the jungle. Maybe they'll go bottom lane. I mean, he can really go anywhere. He's going to make that lane a winning lane. He has like basically 0 losing lane matchups. He's unbelievably powerful. Just so good, and you know, if you're a big fan of Lucario, he's definitely worth putting the time in and practicing, because the more time you put on him, the better you're going to be. He's a really, really phenomenal character. All right, Greninja, my boy. Greninja is a great character. He is somewhat outclassed by Cinderace, and I say that as somebody who puts in a ton of time on Greninja. I mean, I was top 20 in the rankings for Greninja for a while, and I still use him all the time. But his strengths somewhat decline towards the higher tiers of play when you compare him to a Cinderace. And the reason why you have to compare him to a Cinderace is because he fulfills that kind of similar AD carry role. And what I mean by AD carry is like basic attacks and stuff like that. He does a lot of damage. He's very solid. In my opinion, I really like the Smokescreen Surf combination because Surf is an execute and a heal, and it has a reset all in one. He's phenomenal for stomping out solo queue games and phenomenal for carrying your team, getting a lot of kills, and playing standard matches as well. He's probably top tier in low elo matches too. It's just when you get up to the higher levels of the game, your ability to go and make all of those insane plays like with Surf and stuff like that is a little bit diminished, because people understand, oh, he's going to try and execute me, or they're grouping up with shields or what have you. People just kind of know how to play around it a little bit better. Some people at a higher elo also go with the Shuriken build. It's kind of up to you, but Cinderace is really kind of fulfills that 80 carry role on a team. And for that reason, I got to put him at A tier, not S tier. His early game is significantly weaker than Score Bunny's, in my opinion. And yeah, he's a good character. Nothing wrong with him. It's just he's outclassed in his particular role, in my opinion. Okay, speaking of Cinderace, I'm going to put mandatory on high-ranking teams because he is just so good, in my opinion. I got to Masters playing a lot of Cinderace jungle. He's good in lane. He's good in the jungle. He is good. He's good all over the place. I prefer him in the jungle because I can get a level advantage and carry games harder and apply pressure to lanes with ranged poke. I think most people go Blaze Kick and Feint. Feint is just an unbelievably strong ability to have where you can gain invincibility frames, and Blaze Kick allows you to guarantee crits, and it gives you an attack speed steroid so you can really blow people up. He's just a phenomenal sustained damage dealer at all stages of the game, and you're going to see him in most high elo matches just because not only is he a very, very powerful ranged attacker, but also you kind of want an auto attack, a basic attack character for quick objective takes. Because special attack characters, their damage is predominantly coming from their attacks, from their cooldowns, and those cooldowns have a cooldown, and they're not as fast at taking objectives. Cinderace is just phenomenal all around. He really doesn't have that many weaknesses, and most teams you will see a Cinderace on once you get above probably Ultra 4, and if not, you should probably pick him because he's a very good character, very, very good character. Okay, let's talk about Pikachu. Let's fill in these other tiers, huh? Pikachu is a great lane bully, has a very, very powerful laning phase, very good laning presence. His Electro Ball does a bajillion damage and is super easy to land. He's a very easy character to pick up and play, has a large amount of CC as well, which can be really useful. But outside of that, his effectiveness is somewhat diminished. He, later on in the game, when people have shields, when people are grouping up for team fights and stuff, he doesn't have that one-shot level of burst that some other special attackers have, and he doesn't have as much utility as like a Ninetales would have. So he kind of just falls off a little bit as you go up in the rankings, in my opinion. Granted, I did play in Masters and Ultra a bunch with a guy who's playing Pikachu. Is just really strong to take over lanes. So if you're able to snowball a lane with Pikachu, that's great. It's just, I think most people can agree later on, he's just not as scary of a character. In lane, when he can take out half your HP with an Electro Ball, it's really obnoxious. But as you go on, you become less and less scared of him. But he's still a good character, but just, again, has some weaknesses that are exploitable. So for that reason, he's going to be in B tier. Let's see here. Let's do Mr. Mime, baby. Mr. Mime. I think Mime is actually a really, really, really powerful character. He suffers from the same thing that a couple of other characters do, in that his role on the team is somewhat superseded by Eldegoss. Eldegoss is just a phenomenally strong character, so when you're dealing with rocking a support on your team, you probably want to pick an Eldegoss over a Mime, just because if you don't have an Eldegoss, you're probably going to take an L. But Mr. Mime is incredibly powerful, and I don't think people still respect the damage that he does. His confusion, I'm pretty sure, I would have to check, but I'm almost 99% positive it's probably the hardest hitting move in the game for the first 5 minutes of a match. Confusing someone into a wall, it literally hits them for like 2,000 damage. It will take out half of their HP bar. It's incredibly powerful. He's a really, really strong laner. You can do some really nice things, really bully people out of lane and bully people off towers, because they literally have, their backs against the wall, and you push them into it and kill them over and over again. He's just a very, very, very strong laner. His ultimate is very nice because it prevents a lot of engage. It prevents annoying things like Gengar, and his guard swap, even though I usually run barrier when I play him, guard swap is incredibly powerful, and I don't think a lot of people know how to use it correctly, right? You're swapping the defensive stats of another character with yourself, right? And so if you go and you slap this on an enemy Snorlax, Mr. Mime literally can't be killed. Like, try it out in a game. If you have a Snorlax, like, usually Snorlaxes are like, just la-di-dying around in fights, trying to help out their teams. But if you just stick to the Snorlax and keep guard swapping him, the enemy team, I'm not joking, he gets so much defensive stats that he's almost impossible to kill. So Mr. Mime, overall, I got to put him in A tier. He's incredibly powerful. The damage that he outputs is insane, and his utility in blocking off choke points, like at Zapdos, he's just a phenomenal Zapdos fighter as well. I can't say enough good things about Mr. Mime. It's just he's in another situation where there is someone that fulfills his role a little bit better in the current meta landscape. Alrighty, let's do Talonflame. Talonflame, whoops, I'm gonna put him in C tier right now. He is. It's not that he's bad. It's just that speedsters and the other speedsters in the game just do everything that he does a bit better, and his team fight presence is not that great. He just suffers from the same kind of stuff that Wigglytuff does, where, like, yes, you have some solid hitting abilities, but after those abilities have been used, there's so much counterplay around you. He basically has Brave Bird, and, like, that's it. You can go Fly and, what is it? Fly and Blaze Charge, Flame Charge, if you want to go for like a super high scoring build where you just avoid team fights and fly away and score and stuff, but that really doesn't help your team out at the end of the day. And so when you're running him in the jungle, does he have a lot of strong jungle matchups? No, not at all. Most of the junglers in this game will destroy him in the jungle. Does he have any good lane matchups? No. He's pretty weak in the lane as well. So for that reason, I got to put him at C tier. His Unite move is nice at pushing people off of objectives, and Brave Bird does a lot of damage. There's some fun, cheeky builds you can go with Fly and Flame Charge that just make it so you totally ignore team fights and everything. You just go and try and score points. But again, you're going to be, people are going to exploit the weaknesses that he has as you move up in the tiers. So he's going to be in the C tier. Great damage with with Brave Bird though. Okay. What do we got here? Cramer, I'm tossing him in the B tier. I know some Cram mains might not be super excited about that, but it's just because his laning is incredibly powerful. He does so much damage just in lane with his, what's the ability? Is it Hurricane, I believe it's called? And Surf combination, that knock-up into the AoE is just really, really, really powerful and really annoying to deal with as a laner. But as far as special attackers are concerned, there are just better special attackers than him in laning phase and outside of laning phase. After laning phase, Surf and Hurricane, forgive me if it's Whirlpool instead. I don't believe it's Whirlpool, but regardless, you guys get what I'm saying. If you miss those abilities, or you use those abilities and they go on cooldown, he doesn't have any kind of reset or anything, and after they're gone, he basically has nothing. His Unite move locks him in place, and it does a large amount of damage. You can use it to push people off of objectives, but at higher levels of play, people just know, okay, get ready for the Cramer ult, and they will either outrange it or they will just nuke him to oblivion because he has no escape options. And if you go the escape option route with Dive, it's not the same as it's just not as effective, right? It's almost like he has the kit and the Unite move of a character that should be like an AD carry, like a Cinderace or Greninja, but instead they made him a special attacker. If they made him an attacker and he actually could do damage with his basic attacks and not just his abilities, then he would probably be S tier. But that's just not what he is. And so for that reason, and the glaring weaknesses post laning phase, I have to put him in B tier. He has a kind of similar situation to Pikachu. Okay, let's do Mr. Crustal. Mr. Crustal. I know there's a lot of Crustal mains out there who probably won't be too pleased with this, but in comparison to the other defenders in the game, he's just not scary. And his impact is only felt if you grossly misplay and allow him to impact you in that way. He is super kiteable. His Shell Smash is predictable. His wall is pretty predictable. And, the only way that he really will impact those fights is if you let him get close to you and he X-scissors you into a wall or something like that, or you don't play around him. but at higher levels of play, you're just never scared of a Crustal like you are a Snorlax or a Slowbro. And you guys let me know down below if you agree. I just don't think. I think that in the beta he was scary because people are like, oh, Shell Smash is like really nuts. He does so much damage, but people know how to deal with Shell Smash. People know, like, okay, if you just don't go in melee range of him, then he can't do anything to you. And he really has to go and make some tough decisions when it comes to choosing his abilities. And I just think that the other characters that are competing for the same defender slot as him don't have to do that. He's just not as good. He's very easy to deal with in lane. I think he's very easy to deal with in team fights. And for that reason, I've got to put him in C tier. You're just never afraid of a Crustle. You just aren't. He's just not very threatening at all. You can kite him. You can ignore him. His Unite move is cool if you stand there and hit it, but most people understand, oh, he gained a bunch of shields. He's just there. That's what he is. He just exists. He's a little rock crab. And for that reason, I got to put him in C tier. Sorry, Crustle mains. We'll see, if they make changes in the future or something like that. But regardless, let's talk about Charizard. Charizard is going into the B tier. I'm actually going to put him at the front of B tier. Yeah, I'm going to put him at the front of B tier. Whoops. Okay. So Charizard, he just got a nerf, unfortunately. Before that, though, he was secretly busted. And he's still pretty powerful for what his role entails. Is he as fantastic as some of the other all-rounders? No, because a lot of the all-rounders are really, really strong. But what he exists to be is an anti-carry. Most people will go Flare Blitz and Fire Punch. You can go and check out my Charizard guide. Same thing with, a Greninja and Absol and Cinderace. You can go and check out the guides on my channel if you want to learn how to play them better. But Charizard is a phenomenal anti-carry. So his early game, his laning is not that great. His jungle clear is pretty strong. It's pretty fast. But because of the nerf, it definitely took a hit to his jungle speed, so he's not as good. But what his main role is to be an anti-carry, and what I mean by that is when he becomes Charizard and he gets later on in the game, you should be running Energy Amplifier, which is an item that increases your Unite move charge rate, and it increases the amount of damage you do when you're in your Unite move and post-Unite move. And so basically, Charizard's Unite move is one of the, if not the fastest charging Unite moves in the entire game. Like, he can use it, and within 30 seconds to a minute, he'll have it back up. It's really, really strong, and it's amazing for stealing objectives, and it's amazing for soloing out carries because he just flies over them and nukes them. The reason why I put him in B tier is because of those nerfs. That significantly impacted the amount of damage he's able to do with Muscle Band and his clear speed in the jungle, which would allow him to come online a lot faster. He's still a fine character, but the nerfs definitely impacted him. But once you get into late game with him, if you're not that far behind, he's amazing. He really is amazing. So make sure you keep an eye on those Charizards. Alrighty. Let's talk a little bit about Garchomp. Garchomp's my first making your team 4v5 character. And my Garchomp players out there probably aren't that happy about that. Sorry, just taking a swig of water. In the beta, Garchomp was a scary beast, a force to be reckoned with. His ult did 1 billion damage, and people just ran him jungle because nobody really knew what they were doing in the beta. Let's be real. Some people did, but a lot of people didn't. It seems like they toned down his Unite move damage from the beta. He's still really good at soloing objectives, but he is awful in lane. He's atrocious in lane. If you take Garchomp to lane, you're basically making the lane a 1v2, and you're making the game a 4v5 because he does nothing until he becomes Garchomp. And the problem is that even once he becomes Garchomp, he's so hard countered by range and doesn't have that same impact as as other characters, that he's basically a non-threat even once he has become Garchomp, unless you snowballed the game out of control and you're like 3 levels above people. Like, he's just not that scary. He's he has great sustain. He's good at soloing objectives, but nobody really should be soloing objectives. People are rotating to objectives, and he's very easy to counter because everybody knows his gimmick, which is don't stand in his melee range and let him get up the stacks on his passive, and let him just beat the crap out of you. Just walk away from him, and he can't do anything. So he's atrocious in lane, and in jungle he is just surpassed by literally every other jungler in the game. And so there's just no real point in playing him in either location, if I'm being totally honest. So when I'm playing a game and I see that there's a Garchomp in the enemy team, I just immediately think, all right, this should be a free win, because it's literally a 4v5. Gibble is just not that fantastic. His mid game is even worse, and the enemy team really has to not know what they're doing in order to get stomped out by a Garchomp. I'm just being totally honest. His ult still does decent damage, but he is just so easily countered and so weak in so many areas that it's not really worth playing him, in my opinion. And especially at higher elos, you basically never see him. But who knows what'll happen in the future. All right, Gardevoir, the most recent addition to the cast. I'm preemptively putting it in B tier. I think that it is probably, if not the worst, one of the worst pre-level like 12 Pokemon in the entire game. Routes is just awful. It's not a situation like a Charmander where you can go and take routes into the jungle and clear quickly to try and build up to Gardevoir that much faster, because you will be eaten alive in the jungle, but you're also going to be eaten alive in lane. You're literally making the lane a 1v2. Because it's just that bad. Now, if the enemy team misplays and just lets you hang out as routes and doesn't punish you and dive the crap out of you, which doesn't happen, by the way, then once you get Future Sight and Psyshock, you start to do decent damage. Once you start to get Moonbeam, you at least have a stun to get away from people somewhat. Even though I believe Psychic ends up doing more damage, is probably the better route to go. And then at 12, if you're running the Future Sight build, when you land Future Sight, it gets resets and her damage really spikes up. And Psyshock also gets a nice damage spike too. It's just, is it enough to warrant bringing that character onto a team? And I really just don't think so right now. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but right now, given the amount of games that I've played with her, I just don't think that being so bad for so long is worth it. Her Unite move is one of the best Unite moves in the game. It's really powerful. It's a black hole that pulls people in. It's an automatic team fight winner. But the problem is that if you're playing against a competent team, you're not gonna get to the point where you can use your Unite move until much later in the game, because they're going to be stomping and diving the crap out of you. And so for that reason, I have to put her in B tier. She doesn't have any good lane matchups. She doesn't have any good jungle matchups or jungle clear. And her Unite move is amazing, and her damage later on in the game is good, but even at that point, if you get onto her, she's gonna just die. She's incredibly squishy, and I just don't think that she is that fantastic at this point. But who knows? Maybe my opinion will change the more I play her. Alrighty, let's talk about the purple blob menace himself, Gengar. Gengar is a really solid jungler. I know that he is the bane of a lot of solo queue players' existences, especially at lower elos, because people are very quick to just jump on and blame the character itself. And I'm not saying that he's not strong. I'm not saying that Sludge and Hex doesn't need some looking into. But as you move up in the tiers, people do know how to deal with him. People know, speaking just from experience, it's like I look at Gengar on the other team. I know, okay, for 8 levels, for 7 levels, I'm going to put this guy in the dirt so that he can't have that same level of impact. And that's really what it comes down to. But why is he an S tier? It's because the Sludge and Hex combo is just, it's phenomenally powerful. It's really easy to use, and his only real weak stage of the game is that early game point before he gets Sludge Bomb and Hex. He's just he's really easily able to capitalize on the mistakes of an enemy team that aren't respecting his damage output and aren't respecting his combo. Like if people are grouping up all on one objective, then he can really make light work of some teams. But he's not, in my eyes, he's not a mandatory pick, just because there are some other characters in some other team compositions where you have a large amount of shields, you have a large amount of displacements. Better players know how to play against him, like interrupting his jumps in with full heals or CC, or feinting the Sludge, feinting the Hex, blocking his dash with a Snorlax block or a Mime wall, different things like that. He is no doubt one of the strongest junglers in the game right now. Will he see some nerfs in the future? I think maybe. I don't know what they would do, because honestly, if they touch Hex and Sludge, his other moveset is just straight garbage. And so I don't know. We'll see what happens, but he's a phenomenal jungler. Early game, you have to play it very safe because he is phenomenally weak. Ghastly is atrocious, and Haunter is awful until you get Hex. But after that point, once you do get Hex and you can start going and making plays on lanes and landing Sludge, he's a very powerful character. But again, people learn. People know, okay, if he uses his Hex to close the gap and he doesn't land it on a Sludge target, kill him. If he uses his Sludge and he misses, go in on him, because after that he has nothing. He needs Sludge and Hex. So for that reason, Gengar is in the S tier, baby. Also in the S tier is Ninetales. Ninetales is really, really, really good. I mean, really good. The common build that you saw in the beta was like Avalanche into like Icy Wind, but now most people are running Aurora Veil, because it gives you damage reduction and it gives you a tremendous amount of crowd control with basic attacks and stuff like that. Ninetales is just so good to have on a team. She's probably the best special attacker in the entire game, just because of the sheer amount of utility that she provides. She straight up hard counters melee characters and characters that need to close the gap and get in close range. She dominates the top lane. She dominates in team fights because she can provide damage reduction to teams in the form of Aurora Veil. Her Unite move is easy to land and impactful. She also, whether it's intentional or not, is a really strong counter to Snorlax engage. She's just tremendously powerful. I almost want to put her on mandatory on high-ranked teams, but some groups don't run her and run like other things like Lucario's, Machamps, and stuff like that. So she's in the S tier. She's incredibly powerful. I actually might put her ahead of Gengar, because she is just, her utility is unbelievable. If you're not the best player, but you want to play a special attacker and you want to make an impact on your team, pick Ninetales, because Ninetales is relevant at all levels of play. She doesn't necessarily have the most insane damage, but it's almost impossible for her to lose lane. It's impossible for you to lose team fights if you have her. So definitely consider picking up Ninetales. All right, who else do we got here? Slowbro. Him and Snorlax are somewhat interchangeable. He is really, really good. His early game isn't as good as Snorlax, but his late game is nuts. If you're a carry player, you know the pain of having a Slowbro on the other team, because in my case, I get Unite moved on cooldown by Slowbros, and they toss their telekinesis at me, and it's not nice. Surf is a tremendous CC. His telekinesis is tremendous CC. meaning crowd control, meaning like stuns and stuff, and his Unite move takes carries out of team fights. He is just a really, really, really powerful character, and one of the best defenders in the game, right up there with Snorlax, interchangeable. It's just that Snorlax is, in my opinion, a little bit stronger earlier, and his block is just as impactful. And so, you can't go wrong with Slowbro. You can't go wrong with Snorlax. They're just both incredible defenders, and that's why Crustal is so low, is because he just does not have the same level of impact. One Slowbro Unite move can change the course of an entire game. One Slowbro Telekinesis or a Surf on multiple people literally locks down. I mean, you can lock down a team for seconds at a time. And seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're in the middle of a team fight, if I'm a Cinderace, I get knocked up 3 times by Surf into a Telekinesis and then into a Unite move, I'm useless. And he can do that all the time. It's really, really powerful. He's a phenomenal defender, and so that's why I have to put him in the S tier. Alrighty. Let's talk about Machamp. Machamp, I'm going to put him... I will put him here next to Lucario. Machamp is very similar to Lucario in that they're just a powerhouse at all stages of the game. I would say Machamp's, or Machop, his early game is not as good, but as soon as he gets submission, he's a nightmare to deal with. Submission is just an unbelievably strong ability. Most Machamps go submission into cross chop because submission is just unbelievably good. It makes him unstoppable. He's immune to CC, and what that means is if you have a carry on the enemy team and you have a priority target, like a carry, your Dunyan rings. He's going to run at you, and the pressure is on you now. You have to escape him because there's nothing that your team is going to be able to do to stop him from getting to you. And if he's able to get to you and toss you into the ground, CC, and have teammates follow up, he's just an absolute beast. Some people play him in the jungle for those submission ganks, and then other people play him in the bottom lane with like a support Eldegoss. So that they can get him through that early part of his laning phase. But he's unbelievably strong. Cross chop hits like a Mack truck, and his Unite move basically puts him on steroids. And if you can catch multiple people in his Unite move, it's a game-changing Unite move. So Machamp is just an incredibly powerful character, and you cannot go wrong if you're trying to one-trick Machamp. Alrighty, who do we got next? Let's do Venusaur. I almost want to put him in his own tier. People might hate me for this. But Venusaur is not good right now. He's really not good. And I feel bad for all the Venusaur mains and people who love that character, who love Bulbasaur, because right now he just does nothing of note. He doesn't have the best lane matchups. He doesn't have the best jungle clear. He basically has no power spikes to speak of, like his the close range build, like Giga Drain into Petal Dance. He just gets blown up. Even if you're running like Shell Bell or a tankier setup, he is superseded by literally every attacker in the game. And if you want to play him as a bruiser, you're better off just playing one of the all-rounders who are all better than him. You would hope that he has some kind of, poke style build with his Solar Beam, because Solar Beam is just a cool ability and it does decent damage, but it doesn't do enough damage with that cooldown to make a difference. He probably has the worst Unite move in the entire game, and if I see a Venusaur on the team, more so than if I see a Garchomp, I just see a free win, honestly, or a 4v5, because he has no moments in the game where he is impactful or a threat in any way, shape, or form. I don't even think Sludge Bomb is working correctly. The Sludge Bomb into Solar Beam build should be like the go-to build, so to speak, just because Sludge Bomb is supposed to reduce special defense, but it doesn't seem like it does that in any way, so it just seems like a waste. Again, it's not like he's a super glass cannon with no mobility that does a large amount of damage. He's a He's a glass cannon that does no damage, so he's just made out of glass. You can get some cheeky snipes. You can try and steal some objectives with his Unite move and his Solar Beam, but overall, there's no like power spike to speak of. When he picks up Solar Beam, it just, it does damage, but there are multitude of other characters that get their first upgraded ability and do so much more damage than Venusaur does throughout the entire course of a game. In order to win a game as Venusaur, your team basically really needs to put in work, and you need to be super far ahead of the enemy. I'm sorry if you're playing him to great success in like way lower tiers or in standard games. That's a different situation entirely. But the fact of the matter is that he, in my opinion, is probably the worst Pokemon in the entire game right now, because there's just no situation where he should be on a team over anybody else. He's got nothing there, and I wish it wasn't the case. Maybe in the future, when we have some more like long range like supportive characters that can like buff him up and make more poke style comps where he can sit from afar and really poke the enemy team down with solar beams, that could be an option. But right now it's like if you go the long range build, it doesn't do that much damage, and if someone gets on you in a 1v1 fight or even a 1v2 fight, they're going to blow you up. And if you go the closer range build with Giga Drain, you're not healing up enough that nobody's going to be able to kill you. You're just delaying the inevitable. You're going to get destroyed. So that's why Venusaur is just in Venusaur tier. I'm sorry, he's just not that great right now. I wish it wasn't the case. I'm sorry all the Venusaur mains out there, but he's just not. Alrighty. Last but certainly not least, Eldegoss. This little puffball is, in my opinion, just mandatory on 99.9% of high-ranked teams. Honestly, it's hilarious. I went to, my final push to Masters. Some of the people I was playing with, nobody wanted to play Eldegoss, so we made it there anyway, despite it. But you might not notice it at lower tiers, and I see him on, some other tier lists that I see popping up on Reddit in like the bottom of the barrel, and I'm sorry, with all due respect, it's just straight wrong. Like, he is so unbelievably good. He's basically irreplaceable in all team compositions. The amount of shields he provides, the heals, the movement speed, everything about him is just the top. It really is. So in most teams, you're going to end up seeing an Eldegoss, you're going to end up seeing a Snorlax, you're going to end up seeing a Cinderace, because that trio is just incredibly powerful and hard to replace at this stage of the game with this roster. Nobody can do what Eldegoss can do. Nobody. You don't know what pain is. People complain about Gengar. People complain about Zeraora. Nobody knows what pain is until you think you're doing well against a team, and then you have to go and team fight an Eldegoss team with Buddy Barrier. You're talking like the amount of shields that you have to cut through in order to win a team fight it's unfair, honestly. If I'm being totally honest, it's like it just feels so bad to go up against. So what is your only counter? You gotta have an Eldegoss on your team. Otherwise, you're literally, if you're going a full damage composition, unless you put that Eldegoss in the dumpster early on, the amount of shields and the movement speed that he provides with his tornadoes or his puffs or his cotton guard. I mean, he has so many useful abilities that he's just irreplaceable. In lane, he makes characters that otherwise would have terrible laning phases. He makes them into fantastic characters in a game where you have no other secondary resource, right? The only thing that everybody has is cooldowns. There's no mana like there is in League of Legends. Having someone who can reliably give you shields, heals, and movement speed boosts in this game with no mana cost it's insanely strong. It's insanely strong. You can literally siege people off of their tower forever straight up because of the sustain of Eldegoss. He can just keep people topped off, and he is just unbelievably strong. So if you're a support player and you wanted to make an impact and you wanted to learn a character that is going to be good at every level of play, definitely go for Eldegoss. He's just so good. I can't overstate it enough. And if you're in the lower tiers, you might not see it yet, but I promise you, as you climb up, you're going to see Eldegoss in a lot of games, and there's going to be a point where you go for Zapdos and you think you have the game in the bag, and the enemy team groups is 5 with an Eldegoss, and they all have 40% HP, buddy shields, buddy barriers with Eldegoss shield on top of it, and you're gonna be sad. You're gonna be really upset. With the Eldegoss, the shield sustains, the movement speed, the unite move, heal, everything about it. You're gonna be really sad because it's a pain to deal with, and that just seems to be the current meta right now. So for that reason, I put Eldegoss above honestly everybody else. As far as the people that have not been released yet, Blissey, they just kind of teased her. If her abilities stay as they are, I think she's going to be top tier automatically because she has cleanse and stuff like that. And that's going to be a counter to Gengar and nerf Gengar just by the fact that Blissey exists. I haven't seen much about Clefable. I know Blastoise Surf was really strong in the betas, but those are for another time. I'll make another tier list when they pop up. And I hope you guys found this information to be useful. This is my first ever tier list, so if you have any suggestions or something that you want to see in particular, please feel free to let me know in the comments or at me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at RealAdamocles. Follow me on Twitch. See me stream at Adamocles. And not at Adamocles, twitch.tv/Adamocles. And make sure you subscribe for the Nintendo gift card giveaway. So thank you guys for all the support. I think that if there's enough interest, I'll probably do a lower elo and a solo queue tier list. I can do tier lists for anything. I can do it for the items as well. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm pretty comfortable with this tier list. I think it's pretty solid. And if you have any questions or you want to debate me, again, these are just my opinions. It's not law or anything like that. Please let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. Adamocles out.